Hey there, entrepreneur, and welcome to today's show. I'm joined by Andrew Ryder, who helps coaches and course businesses create authentic being the key word there, folks, content to sell their programs without relying on shady tactics and struggling with writer's block. So he helps clients with reimagining the content creation, which we're going to talk about. And then side note, folks, graduated from Columbia with a triple major in chemical engineering, applied physics, and chemistry. All things I will never be good at. So Andrew, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'm excited for this conversation because I know you and I are quite aligned on a lot of these things. But before we jump in, let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. I know you say, entrepreneurship ruined your life, which is really awesome. So tell us about your journey.
Yeah, I like to say that entrepreneurship ruined my life because it did, but it really wakes people up because entrepreneurship is supposed to be something that, especially for coaches, course creators, a lot of solo entrepreneurs are getting into this space because they see this pinnacle of success. They see the freedom and the abundance and the money and the fame that they can achieve by starting a business, but they don't realize that success and happiness are not the same thing. Yeah. And oftentimes by pursuing that definition of success, that maybe someone else's definition of success, you're sacrificing those things that really make you happy. And so I was the perfect example of this. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in 2016. It was my first experience in the entrepreneurial space. And I just thought, wow, how did I not know this existed? How did I not know that this was something that you could do with your life? I got so excited at just the idea of starting a business, of earning freedom, of helping people solve a problem that I myself had overcome. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to start a business. And from there, I got into all of the Facebook online business, make money online type of programs where really it's the opposite of what I thought I was going to be doing. You're not really helping anyone. You're just trying to sell them something. Yeah. You are using a whole bunch of spammy tactics and tricks to try to get people to buy from you. And most of the time, those types of programs don't actually work. They may have worked at one time for one person for a very short, very specific case, and they film it all and put it into a nice presentation. Yep. And it's just, that whole world was so toxic to me. And I got caught up in the hustling and the struggling and talking about how hard you work on social media. And I lost track of the things that really mattered in my life. I lost track of my health, my relationships with family and friends. I was sacrificing everything because I thought that if I just worked harder, coaches will tell you, you have to really want it. You have to be willing to put in the hours. You have to be willing to do the hard work to get there. And there's some truth in that, but it's misleading. There's so much pressure to struggle and hustle and sacrifice everything to build this business. And that's why I say that I wasn't able to achieve my definition of success by sacrificing those things to build a business. A lot of people are interested in building a business that allows them to leave their full-time job and have some free time, but they end up building businesses. If they're lucky enough to create something that's successful, they build a business that then, congratulations, you graduated from a 40-hour work week to an 80-hour work week.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people are earning less money in that entrepreneurial endeavor. Not to say that money is the pinnacle of success, but you're working more, you're working harder, pursuing that dream of freedom, but you're never getting closer to actually saving some time. And all along the way, you're training yourself to be anxious, to be hustling, to never be able to spend time relaxing, watching TV with your family or doing things that you love to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's such a great point. That's why you're on here, because I feel like there are so many people that need to hear this. And I'm not saying, again, like, we're not black and white here where all cases are this or all cases are that, but I see it as a coach. You and I have talked about this so many times. People come in and they hear the things like make $1 million in 2 weeks, or, all of these things. And it negates the longevity that is needed to get to that point. So what do you think is your definition of success today versus kind of then?
Yeah. So back then, my definition of success was starting a business that required very minimal, it was very much 4-hour work week-esque
Yeah.
in that it required a couple of hours a week to manage it. Customers coming on autopilot, making lots of money. I could retire to Tahiti or somewhere nice, have a Mai Tai, sit on the beach.
Yeah.
That was the dream, right? And it's funny because that lifestyle would drive me absolutely crazy. I got married last summer and my wife and I went to Hawaii for a couple of weeks. It was probably the longest vacation we've ever taken with no work, no email, no nothing. And by the end of those 2 weeks, I was just itching, like ready
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
back. And I was hot and sweaty, and all of the relaxation. I was like, okay, I've had enough relaxation. It's time to get back to work and build something, do something. And so retiring, in my 20s would not be a suitable lifestyle for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my definition of success now is really sort of have three priorities. My first priority is my own mental and physical health, and it's in investing in myself. I really think of everything I do as an investment. So first, investing in myself, because everything else in my life comes out of a place of having that strength and focus, ability to think critically. Everything that I do, whether it's my relationship with my wife, whether it's my business, whether it's working with clients, it all stems out of being the healthiest, most confident, strongest person that I can be. So that's the top priority for me. Second priority, relationship with my wife and with my family. That is, those relationships are really what make me the happiest, healthiest person. I can't fully show up to those relationships if I'm tired or if I'm sick or if I'm not sleeping well or eating poorly or not exercising, all those things, right? Starts with my health, and then it leads into my relationships. And then my third priority, which is obviously still very important, is the relationships that I'm building with my audience, with my customers, and really investing into them and to their character to help them to create better content so they can grow their businesses and really share that message that's on their heart to share.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. I mean, you and I are very much aligned because I think I'm right. I'm right there with you with what you just said in regards to priorities. Very much in line myself, then family and relationships personally, and then clients. So what do you say to the people who say like, well, just grind for 2 years and then you're good, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've done that. So I could say that it's sort of a misconception. I don't know. Maybe there are folks who can create something extremely successful and make it, quote unquote, make it in those 2 years. For me, I really had the wrong priorities I was also trying to do things quickly. And when you try to do things fast, you're usually sacrificing quality or you're taking some kind of shortcut. So I can't speak for other people. Maybe you'd be lucky enough to build something that's great, but I think you'll find that the things that are worth doing consistently over the long term. And you're likely not going to create an entire lifetime's worth of content in the next 2 years so that you can just drip it out over the course of weeks and months forever. You're likely not going to invest in all the relationships with other people in your industry. You're not going to do all of the interviews you want to do. You're not going to write all the books that you want to write. So I think it's a mindset shift from making money as your definition of success to creating an impact or to helping people. And it's not, it's really not to say that making money is bad or that you shouldn't be trying to make money. You absolutely, your top priority as a business is to make money, because if you don't make money, you can't help people. But shifting that into why are you running this business? Are you just doing it to make money, or are you doing it so you can actually help people solve a problem?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm with you. We're not money bashing here, folks, because again, like if you are stressed out over money, that's going to kill your first priority, particularly too, right? That can really impact your mental and physical health and all sorts of things in your relationships too. So, but it's not for everybody the end all be all. And I think sometimes people are shocked at that. Like, oh, money isn't the first thing. Like it's like an automatic thing that we're supposed to be going toward. And, you know, I think when you're playing the long game, like it sounds like you are, it's more about your quality of life and your evolving definition of what a successful life looks like, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So back to my priorities, I need to have my health and my relationships taken care of so that I can sit and focus and do good work in my business. If I don't have those other things taken care of, yeah, I could grind it out, and I've done that for months at a time. 2 years is a really long time. It goes by fast, but
Yeah.
to be absolutely miserable every day, just grinding it out through sheer willpower, is you're not going to be able to do that for 2 years. And even if you do, you're going to find that the person you become is completely unrecognizable to you.
Yeah.
And it's taken me, and I'm still not done, but it's taken me 2 years. So I've spent probably 4 years, 3 to 4 years trying to just grind and hustle and do exactly that, just to make it and be successful and have everything perfect for the rest of my life. And I've spent the last 2 years trying to undo all of that, because it was, like I said, entrepreneurship ruined my life. That mindset completely ruined everything that I actually valued in my life. And it's still, I'm still working on it. It's taken me two
Yeah.
years to get to the point where I'm at now. And I'm happy with where I'm at now, but I still get that anxiety on evenings here and there where I haven't done enough work, or I can't relax because I'm not producing as much content as
Right.
someone else. There's that constant feeling that just haunts you all the time, that you're not working hard enough. It takes a long time to get rid of those habits.
Yeah, yeah, it does, because it all boils down to that sentiment of am I enough, right? Like you just kind of noted at it. Like, am I hustling enough? Am I working hard enough? Am I making enough money? Am I enough? Period. And I think it takes us as our own kind of captains of the ship to say, no, I'm enough right now. I'm enough before I even make the money. I'm enough before I put out the content. I'm enough so that you're not using it to kind of fill the void, but that you're full, so then you can provide, to your point, right?
That's absolutely right. And I love the way that you put that. All of these things we do to work harder, to earn more, is to sort of fill that gap of making myself good enough to according to someone else's standards online. But you're never going to be able to fill that hole if you're going by someone else's expectations.
Yes.
And often it's really, you need to recognize that you already are enough. I really love this book, The Alchemist. I don't know
Yeah,
if you've read
me
it.
too.
It's
I have. Yeah.
super popular because of the way the story speaks to that drive inside all of us, especially as entrepreneurs, to go out and to learn these things and achieve these things. But if you take a step back and look at the whole plot of The Alchemist, this boy goes on this journey to find treasure, right? And along the way, he meets someone, he falls in love, he spends something like 7 years working and doing all of these different things, building up to this journey where he can finally become the person who's worthy of finding, finishing this journey and finding the treasure. And what he finds after going through everything that he goes through, he has this maturing process where he comes to the point where he realizes that everything that he already wanted, he already had access to. The
Right.
treasure was located at the starting point.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same realization that we're discussing here, that no amount of going and working and hustling yourself into this place of abundance is going to really make you feel that sense of satisfaction or that sense of completion in your life. The only way you can feel that is through self-reflection and through designing a life that you're happy now on that journey to success.
Yeah. I like the fact that you said self-reflection, because when we're hustling, we're not necessarily anchored in a place of self-reflection and, where it becomes a habit. I think that's the thing that I worry about sometimes when I work with entrepreneurs, is that there's a season for hustle sometimes, right? A launch of a new product or something like that. There is a season for that. But when it becomes your norm, then you've ingrained a whole new set of habits. And that's a little different. Now you're living the lifestyle of hustle and grind versus having a conscious choice of that being a season that is there with a start and an end. And that you're actually conscious enough to say, this is what I'm learning from all this. And oh my goodness, I'm okay without it. And, all of the questions, The Alchemist is fantastic, by the way. Everybody should read that book.
Yeah. It's such an awesome book. And, I've always heard the saying that you should read what you love until you love to read.
Yeah.
That's kind of how you get into the realm of reading. And The Alchemist would be a great place to start, because it's a combination of it's a fictional story with very real, impactful takeaways for your life. Yeah. So
it's simple. It's not a heavy read. It's, but it's heavy in its impact, but not heavy in its depth of reading knowledge and stuff like that.
Right.
I have a friend who reads it. Actually, my friend Christine reads it every January. She's done it for years and years and years, which I may be following suit with her on that. So when you have people that are coming to you and they have kind of gone through this hustle grind, they've gone through the, just build the funnel and it'll all magically happen. What do you do to kind of slow them down and to acknowledge the fact that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and help them?
So one of the things that really helped me was thinking about this from a perspective of running. I ran in college, middle distance. And so a lot of the running analogies and things sort of intuitively make sense to me. But there's this race that we used to run. It's called Bloomsday. It is a really popular, about 7.5 mile run. And people come from all over the world to run this race. And so there's probably 50,000 people that run it. It goes through, sort of through town and around through some parks and things. And anyways, there's people of all different levels that run this race. And so the people that are in the front will be the fastest runners, and they'll go out and they'll just sprint. And if you're not careful, you can get caught up in that momentum where everyone at the front is just sprinting.
Yeah.
And you won't realize that the person who's leading that sprint is actually an Olympic athlete, or is a high tier, high caliber runner who's going to run 4-minute miles or 4-minute, 10-second miles for the entire race. And the first couple of miles of the run are downhill. So it's really easy you're full of energy. There's adrenaline, the race, the gun goes off and you start running and you're going downhill, and it's really easy to go out too fast.
Yeah.
But then what happens when you go out too fast is in the last couple of miles, the last maybe 2 miles, there's a really grueling steep hill. And then, maybe the last mile and a half is kind of a soft downhill coasting back down into the city. And if you go out too fast, that hill in mile 5 will kill you.
Yeah.
You will have expended too much energy. You won't be able to get over that hill. And so then once you get to the top of the hill, you will be dragging yourself down to the finish line. You could be getting passed up by weekend warriors and by people who ran a smarter race than you. And you'll be thinking, man, I'm way faster than this. I can beat all of these people. And maybe in another race, you could, if you had been smarter about your run, but it's just a completely miserable experience. And so I ran this race twice, and the first time I ran it, I ran a smart race. I held back a little bit. I stuck to my pace, which pace in the running world is the idea of, in that type of race, what are your mile splits going to be? How fast do you want to run the first mile, the second mile? What's your average mile that you want to run? And you want to know that ahead of time, so that when you go through the mile markers, typically they'll have a timer that says, okay, you ran a 7-minute mile, or you ran a 6:30, or you ran a 4:45, and you're going to be totally screwed for the rest of the race because you went way too fast.
Yeah.
So knowing what pace you want to run at and differentiating that pace from the Olympic runner's pace and differentiating it from the walker's pace, but knowing what your pace is and being willing to stick to that plan, regardless of what chaos is going on around you and how fast people are sprinting out. And so I think you can start to see that there's parallels at all different places here to the way we run our businesses, right? We see people who are going out and sprinting. We see people who have whole media production companies so that they can be posting on every different social media platform 7 times a day. And they have these fancy studios and they're recording 5 different podcasts, and they just have all of these things they're doing. They're launching multiple products and all of this stuff. And we feel compelled to keep up with them, but we don't recognize that that's not our pace. With where you're at individually, you need to be really realistic. And again, this goes back to the idea of self-reflection. Mm-hmm. Where are you? What can you realistically accomplish? Yes. There's this stigma that you have to be pushing yourself. You have to be working just a little bit harder than you think you can go because you need to push yourself. But that's wrong. It's right if you're running 100 meters, but that's only 100 meters is maybe one day. You can push yourself in one day. You know, on Saturday, I did like an 8-hour day and I wrote a combination of writing and assembling a book that I'm working on. And I did like 20,000 words in one Saturday. You know, that's a 100-meter sprint.
Right.
But then I took, I didn't do anything on Sunday, had a pretty light first half of the week here. So I'm not exceeding my overall pace. I'm not going and grinding and hustling for 2 years straight, right? I'm not getting to that point where I feel like I need to take a break from my business, or I need to cut back on my commitments, or I need to, completely get away on a vacation. So that idea of pace to me is really important. And I think it's sort of contrarian to the way that a lot of people think about what level of work they need to be doing on a daily basis. I think about holding back a little bit rather than pushing a little bit harder than I feel comfortable to. And the other thing that I'll add on this story of Bloomsday here is that one of my friends, one of my teammates, actually, he started out one year. He knew that the front page of the local newspaper always had a picture of the front of the pack at the beginning of the race. And so what he did is he sprinted out with the Olympians and the high caliber runners. He's a very fast runner himself, but he knew that he was going to go out at an all-out sprint to get to the front of the pack so he could have his picture in the newspaper along with 5 or 10 or 50 other people. So you have to be careful because people's goals are not the same as yours. His goal was not to run the entire 7.5-mile race as competitively as he could. Right. His goal was to run the first 100 yards or 200 yards as fast as he could. So if you're not careful, you'll get sucked into other people's goals. And then, you'll run that first 200 meters way too fast. And then you'll realize that wasn't my goal at all. I wanted to run, over the long term. I wanted to create a successful business that I can work on for years, for decades, even. So it's back to that self-reflection. What do you actually want to build? What are you good at? And how can you combine what you want to build, how you want to help people with your strengths to build a business that you can work on every day for the next decade?
Yeah. Yeah. It's about the staying power of it, right? Like, I think, I've had so many clients that I've had to like kind of give permission. I'm sure you have too, where I have to be like, no, you don't have to do that. And they're like, there's like a shock to them. Like, what do you mean I don't have to do that? And then there's a fear that comes after that. Like, but what if I don't do that? Well, what if you don't do that? But maybe something better will happen if you don't. Maybe you'll feel better, to your earlier point. Maybe you'll be more in alignment with your own personal priorities. But again, I think if you're running too fast, like if you come out sprinting, and I love that entire way that you're positioning that, by the way, with the race. If you don't even know what your goals are before the gun goes off, that's a whole other problem, correct?
Yeah. If you don't know what your goals are, if you don't know what pace you're going to run at, you'll end up inadvertently running at someone else's pace.
Yeah.
And you'll end up building something that, like the example we used earlier, if so many people get into this business to try to create freedom or lifestyle or impact in their industry.
Yeah.
And they end up spending more time completely stressed out all the time, so much anxiety. They're working all the time, and they're probably making less money than they were in their 9-to-5 job. And so you just have to be really careful that you don't build something that you actually hate.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll add there too is that if you're doing things that you don't like, you're doing things that you feel like you have to do, but they're not your strong suit, there's going to be a lot of friction there.
Yes.
And I know that if your goal is to get more Twitter followers, pursuing and persevering through friction is a great way to do that. And talking about how hard you work is a great way to do that. But the friction wears on you over time.
Yeah.
And what you find, especially for coaches, course creators, or solo entrepreneurs, that people aren't buying your products because your products are amazing. They're buying your products because they want to be more like you.
Yeah.
They want to achieve the success that you've achieved. They want to solve the problems that you've learned how to solve and become the type of person that you are. They're using you as that role model. And it's easy to hide some of these things on social media. I've hired coaches before who I thought had it all figured out.
Yeah.
Only to realize that as soon as I hired them, they've got everything duct taped together and they're in even worse shape than I am mentally. They just are able to put that front out there. Yeah. And it's a really, really tough industry because of all of these things that we think we need to do. Yeah. So if you're able to step back from that and build a business in a way that's minimizes the amount of friction that you have to go through, it's built to your strengths, it's built to the things that you enjoy doing. I do very few things in my business that I don't enjoy doing. So for example, I really don't enjoy any sort of cold outreach, direct outreach. So, I hired company Interview Connections who reached out to you, and that's how we got connected to do this podcast, right?
Yeah.
I love having these conversations. I hate doing the emails and the outreach and managing all of that. So I look for opportunities where I can just focus on the things that are that are strengths for me, but also that I enjoy doing them. Because if I don't enjoy doing it, and again, we're taking a long-term perspective here. It's not about getting rich overnight. It's about creating a long-term, a business that's successful over the long term. I could do things that I don't like doing for a week. I can maybe do it for a month, but I'm not going to be consistent with it. And over the long term, it's just not going to work out. Right. I need to be focused on the most impactful things that I can do, that I enjoy doing, and it's fun for me, because that authenticity and enthusiasm and all of the energy that you bring to those things that you really enjoy doing, it reflects out into your content, into your programs, into everything that you do. And that's really, the conviction that you have, the energy that you have is one of the most powerful sales mechanisms that you can use. There's all these tactics and all these things and copywriting that you can do to make sales, but a lot of times just being a passionate leader who's willing to just dive in and cut through all the complexity and all the nonsense and lead your audience to their goals, that's going to be enough to make the sales in a much more authentic and less sleazy, less salesy way. And it's authentic to you, to your brand, and to what your customers are really looking for, because at the end of the day, they're following you, right? We use that word follower, but we never flip it around and realize that if they're following us, that makes me, or that makes you, their leader. Yeah.
There's a responsibility that comes with it, right? And to your earlier point, if you're doing things like that friction that you spoke about, and I like that you pointed out how people are duct taped together on the back end, right? If you're doing a whole bunch of things that are, not in alignment or causing friction with you, there's only so long you can keep that up. And also living almost like a duplicitous life with that too, right? I mean, that's exhausting, right? I mean, I have a coach who has told me numerous times, every time I try to do something that she's like, that is no way in alignment with you, Michelle, where did you get that idea? She always says, well, do you want to lead by example? Do you want to lead by example of stepping into who you actually are and living your values? Which is like, I don't post a lot of pictures of my children online. I see a lot of people do, and that's their choice, but just little things like that, where it's purposeful. It's purposeful because it's in alignment with me, because I'm the person I need to go to bed with every night, right? Like, not the social media version of me who might be different, right? The me, so I think what you're saying is that, be the same person across all the things and honor that authenticity. Correct?
Yeah. So a couple of things there. I think it's really important to note that you have someone who you can share your ideas with, bounce your ideas off of, and they know you well enough to say,
yes,
you probably shouldn't be doing that. Because we're so good at deceiving ourselves.
Yes, we are.
We're so good at just, I need to do this, and then I need to do that. And just diving back into, even when there's this expert in self-deception, Bob Trivers, and he wrote the book literally about self-deception. And at the end of the book, he writes, knowing all this, I'm still no better at preventing myself from deceiving myself, but at least I have a fighting chance in being able to recognize some of the ways in which I'm doing it. So you're never going to stop deceiving yourself, but having someone else who really knows you and you can see it from a outside perspective is so helpful.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, making sure that person who you are aligned with, speaking about the coaches who maybe are not in alignment with you, is mirroring back the correct thing, right? Like, as a coach, it's my job to look at you and understand you and your value set that you want to live by, and then mirror that back to you, not mirror what I think you should be doing or that the industry thinks you should be doing or anything like that. So you have to be very careful, I guess, with the company that you keep in regards to that, because it's very easy. I'm going to have to find that book, by the way, because I think that's really interesting, because we all do it. But just to be very cautious and careful and say, when you are looking for a coach, is this person aligned with my value set? Or are they just aligned with, this picture of who I may want to be that I don't even know if I'm going to like when I get there?
Yeah. It's absolutely right. Yeah. The book is called The Folly of Fools.
Nice. Okay.
And it's definitely a dense read. I think he's an evolutionary biologist, and he gets really deep into all of the ways that we deceive ourselves. And it's fascinating. He spends a lot of time talking about sort of predator prey models with different animals and things that birds do. It's really fascinating stuff, but it's definitely a dense book.
But sometimes some of the things are, especially with social media, the way social media is, I think we all need that dense read to understand ourselves a little better.
Yeah. It's the content world. I spent a lot of time thinking about this lately, but the content world is really a product of our own making as entrepreneurs. And I think it really starts with our background and our education. In the school system is really designed to teach you how to follow a process and to get that validation, get that approval, and then do the next step. And you're always following a checklist. You know exactly where you are, you know exactly what the next step is, and you're getting immediate feedback on everything that you do.
Right.
And that's so different from what entrepreneurship is. I learned all of this the hard way because I was really good at school, and I had to train myself in order to be able to think outside the box, or to think independently, or to do things without getting approval first. But that mindset really lends itself to going on social media and downloading all the tips and tricks and lead magnets and signing up for programs and getting coaches to tell you that what you're doing is right. And when I went through this myself, I thought that it was the fault of the coaches. I thought that it was just sleazy people trying to make money. Right. And there is some of that, but I think really it comes down to our upbringing and our nature to try to seek out all of these tactics and all of these things. And this is why I say that I'm reimagining content creation, because it starts with changing your perspective on how you consume content.
Yes.
There's a tendency to want to consume these tips and tricks. And as a result, then the other content creators, the other coaches and course creators are publishing just empty, soulless content. They're using templates to get these tips out and Mad Libs type content where you just fill in your customers' pain points.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at social media, or when I look at articles that are being published and shared around and viral content and all of these things, it just feels so empty. There's no real soul behind it. There's no belief. There's no passion in it. It's what we feel like we have to do in order to make money or in order to get customers. And it's because everyone believes the lie that the tips and the tricks are what's going to get you to make you successful. There's this quote I really love from Derek Sivers. He says, if information was the key, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs.
Yeah.
And I really love that, because it's such a true statement, but it's also very, delivering. If you're going to deliver something like that, you have to deliver it in a little bit of humor.
Yes, you do.
And, so it's, the information is out there. You can Google search how to do anything. You'll find, billions of results, most of which is completely empty content, but the tips are there. So why are we not all perfectly happy, perfectly successful running these massive businesses and achieving everything that we want in life, right? If we were robots, maybe that would be the case. Maybe we could follow the information exactly. We could just wake up every morning, write a piece of content, and never struggle with any writer's block or never struggle with that internal conflict. But we're not robots, right? We're human beings, and we have the greatest enemy that we're ever going to face. The greatest competition is against ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
And that internal struggle that you fight, it can't be solved with information. It can't be solved with tips and tricks. So you have to be willing to break out of that mode of just publishing tips and tricks, and realize that if you're actually going to help your audience, your followers, to solve their problems, you have to motivate and inspire them to go out and take action, to stop scrolling on social media, to stop just saving all of the posts and all the tips and tricks that they're never going to use. And you've got to get in their head and really inspire them to shut down their phone, go do what you're telling them to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you've described is exactly what differentiates the people who are successful from the not successful, meaning, well-established, big businesses, all of those things, is because the action is the difference. And you're exactly right. We become almost like these information consumers to a fault. And then we put ourselves in our own little echo chambers where we need to be consuming the tips and tricks to fill the void, or to hear or feel like we're doing the right thing in business or wherever it may be. But if you're never taking action, then you're never going anywhere, right? Yikes.
Yeah. And it's easy to think that you're making progress by learning. And you do have to learn to some extent, but you also have to get out there and take action. The best way to actually learn things is to try and fail, and then take the next step with your knowledge. And you're learning at the speed. This is I think a Tim Ferriss line. He says, learn at the speed of implementation rather than, or it's just in time learning rather than just in case learning. It's easy to get caught up in, 5 years from now, when my company is massive, I'm going to need to know all these management things. And so I should start reading the hard thing about hard things, or I should get into, and it's so easy to get off track. Focus on learning what you need to know to take the next step, and then take the next step. And then you can reflect, what's the step after that? And just go one step at a time, right? It's like I think a Chinese proverb that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the single step.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, to your point, if you're looking it's one thing if you're a CEO of a company and you have to be looking, what is it called? Like the headlight vision, right? Like how far out your headlights go. It's one thing if you have to be kind of at that level, that's a different kind of looking out into the future and learning and kind of being ahead of the curve. But if you are the only person in your business and you are not taking those steps forward, you're going to screw yourself. You're not the CEO yet. You're not there yet. So why not master where you are so then you can move forward in it? I love everything that you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's an important note there with the CEOs is that really their job is to be forward looking.
Exactly.
And there's other people, chief financial officer, technology officer, managers, employees, everyone under them is focused on the internal. Yeah. What they've found is that when a CEO resigns or is, they need to move on for whatever reason, a lot of times they'll promote the CFO to that CEO role. And they found that doesn't work because they're two completely different things. The CEO is outward facing, looking into the future and setting that path. And the CFO or the CTO is looking inward at all of the interworkings of the business. And so those are two very different tasks. And as a solo entrepreneur or a creator or coach, you have to be able to do a little bit of both. So it's a difficult thing.
Yeah. And know when to put which hat on, I think, to your point, right?
That's a good point. For sure.
Know when that you're staying a little bit too much in that forward thinking versus acting, so I agree with you. It's not an easy task by any means that we're saying, but it is one that you should be aware of at least. And if you're aware of it, then you are aware when you're doing it. I think you can be more aware of that, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love this conversation and thank you so much, but I need you to tell people where they can find you so that they can come and work with you.
The best place to find me is at andrewbryder.com. And you can sign up for my email list there, check out the blog or any of the things that I do. That's the best way to connect with me. And if you want to learn how to create better content, I am publishing every day, tips and tricks, stories, inspiration, and everything that I can to help my audience create better content. But like we talked about here today, it's not just about the nitty-gritty of creating content, but it's taking a step back and becoming that type of person who can really step up and lead and inspire your audience.
Yeah. Become a good human before you become a good content creator.
That's right.
Really the moral of the story here, folks.
You can do the former, it'll make the latter much easier.
Exactly. Well, you know what, Andrew, this has been a pleasure. So thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thanks, Michelle. I had a great time.